joined virtually by Dr. Wisdom Enang. So glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you both.
Thank you. Thank you for calling.
Now, I would have asked you, but I want to believe you're not in the country. I would have asked you how you're finding this new price hike, in the country, or maybe your loved ones too. Maybe how are they finding it right now?
Yeah, I'm currently not in the country, currently in London, but the price hike, I think it's changed quite a lot because people are thinking, for example, how are they going to be able to put some of the increments in the commuting transport modes, whether it be the tricycle or the buses. A lot of those transports have automatically increased. So that's really taking a pinch. And you would know once you start posting things and they tell you, okay, the price is now 1,000 on top of what it used to be because of the additional cost of fuel.
Right. I know that we've had a couple conversations around this, but if we're going to take a brief, let's take it back a little. Now, the subsidy was removed if I could target 29th of May 2023, and 17 months after, we have seen that this has caused some sort of inflation one way or the other to rise to 33%. When the petrol price was first increased, we got calls from the NLC TUC for them to reverse it. Nothing was done about it. And now we've seen that increment again, even when we thought, okay, with NNPCL getting fuel from Dangote refinery, we should even come at a cheaper rate. Rather, all we've been seeing is increase here and there. And now they have been calling for a sort of reversal. And some have criticized the NNPCL, saying that they bought the product at 899 naira, but are selling it at over 1,000. At this point in time, do you think there is a possibility of any form of reversal? Because we've seen this increment take place at least 2 times from petrol. When the president came in, petrol was about 190 something naira thereabouts, but guess what? It's about 1,050 naira now. So do we see the possibility of a form of reversal, and how can they buy a product at 899 naira and sell at over 1,000? Let's get your perspective on that.
All right, thank you very much. I think, to look at that, I would have to, kind of consider what the NNPCL are perhaps trying to achieve, and I'll have to consider some of the nuances in the entire value chain. Now, I'd like to say that there are 2 critical ways that I tend to think the petroleum products will be paid for, either by the government or by the consumers. But what the NNPCL did is to say we would, supply the fuel, whether it's through being the Dangote's sole distributor or through importation. But within that, they were absorbing some sort of subsidy. So I think the latest one was 133 naira per liter of fuel output was what they were actually subsidizing. And so what you'd find is that the NNPCL have slowly rolled out the subsidy component. Now, as for, and that's why we're now paying a cost-reflective price for the PMS. And it's very easy to see it because if you think about it, the derivatives of the petroleum refining process, likely you have PMS, you have the aviation fuel, and you have the AGO, which is the diesel. Now, if you look at it, the diesel is about 1,250. The petrol now is about 1,030. And so you find out that both of those, one is, been deregulated for a while and has found its market price. The other one is still trying to find its actual market price. So you see that sometimes the market forces and the macro equilibrium are trying to establish the price point for both commodities and very close to each other because, of course, they are derivatives of the petroleum process. So the NNPCL have been absorbing subsidy. I think they're trying to, in a phasal manner, completely take that out. As for the one that they're buying and making profits, I'm not sure why that is the case. That needs to be looked into. The only glimmer of hope, just to answer your last question, where you ask, is there a possibility of a reduction? Is this? For me, I think that glimmer of hope lies in the crude for naira deal coming in effect. Because think about it, the first increase we got clearly stated that we had 133 naira price per liter still being paid as subsidy. However, those inventory was as a result of the refining process on the crude inventory that the Dangote refinery had to get from the US, the WTI variant. And so that was, we could understand that price. Now, going into the crude for naira deal, which started in October, just early October, we should be able, if we are able to meet the 450,000 barrels per day allocation to the domestic refineries, we should technically be able to have enough benefits that would, cancel the cost of shipment, the cost of clearing, the cost of insurance, and of course, the cost of the middlemen when it comes to the importation of fuel. By extension, when we get that 20 to 25% benefit from just the logistics and insurance alone, we can then cascade those benefits to the ordinary Nigerian. So in the nearest 2 to 3 months, when the crude for naira deal really crystallizes, we should have a reduction in price if only we implement it properly.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Wisdom. And I'd like to ask 2 questions. Now, let's look at the alternative to premium motor spirits, which is CNG. I know the federal government have been trying to implement the CNG buses and whatnot and all that. So the first question is, can Nigeria, as a country, can we actually adapt, or can we move to adapting the CNG? And secondly, will Nigerians get any disparities in the price of goods and services? Will it boost the GDP of the economy? Will there be any really significance if we move, or if we adapt compressed natural gas as an alternative to PMS?
Very wonderful questions there. So, let me just reflect on the tenets of energy security, which is energy affordability, energy accessibility, and energy availability. On energy affordability, we've been able to establish something that the price per liter equivalent, remember CNG is not measured in liters, but if you convert the price per liter equivalent of CNG for the same energy content versus the price per liter equivalent for the PMS, you'll find out that the CNG is 230 naira per liter in equivalence compared to the PMS. The CNG is 200 per liter compared to 1,030 naira for the PMS, and so that's a huge, kind of range. And should be told, right, when we're subsidizing initially, and PMS was at about 100 and something naira, 160, 190, maybe 200, it did not make sense because it means it was still cheaper. But as we then go on, you see that is beginning to make a big case for conversion. But what about the 2 other tenets of the energy security, which is the accessibility and availability? You have to think about that. What is availability? Availability is having enough companies that are producing gas for internal consumption and not for export. Remember, the legacy facilities for the Nigerian gas installations has always been for exports. We have more export terminals than we have internal distribution terminals. And that's why we don't really have gas pipelines. So as a result, we have been more export focused. So it's time for us to create that availability in country. The other thing is accessibility. Well, you have a CNG car, but if you are in, let's give it a context, Uyo, for example, how many of those little subsidies within the Uyo metropolis can you actually get your CNG, fuel? And that's the biggest question. So there are advantages out there, but the government needs to do a lot to be able to kind of create the tripod stand of energy security, which is affordability, accessibility, and availability. Now, I'll give you a little bit of more context. Now, think about it. Currently, if you look at on the flip side, which is the the housing or the the use of energy transition within housing, you find out that because you have solar panels and inverters, they're accessible, they are affordable for the long term, and I don't mean the initial cost in terms of the operating cost, and also they are readily accessible because available because you can just go buy them from the store. What has happened? A lot of houses now have solar panels. A lot of houses now have inverters, and even if they don't have a solar panel, they have an inverter that they're charging. What do? They have an inverter that they're charging, and then they connect it to the house. And then when there is no main supply from the electricity distribution, the central distribution, they cut off some of the, they do what we call load shedding and remove a lot of the load and only keep vital, lighting points and maybe sockets for the inverter to run. Two things has happened there. Energy transition and energy efficiency of utilization. Those are the two things. And this is something that goes with gives credence to the sort of adage that necessity is the mother to invention. So see, without any kind of formal teaching, without any engineering, we now have people that have become energy engineers. They not only are looking at cheaper ways to transit in energy on the energy spectrum, they are also becoming more energy efficient. The same thing can apply to automotive if only the government makes the availability and accessibility something that becomes quite widely implemented. And one of the ways to do this is for the government to lead from their own, to walk the talk. Basically, investors want to know, if I come into this market, is there a long term to it? The first thing should have been all government official vehicles, we need to convert them within the next 6 months. You need to convert them to CNG. And so if I'm setting up a CNG plant, I know definitely that even if I do not have the market from the main consumers, I do have a market from the government appointees, and that's a starting point. That's even a way to send a signal that we are serious. It's a way to send a signal that we're ready to walk the talk, and that we have started indications that shows that we have a long-term interest of sustaining this particular business.
All right. Thank you for that very well-detailed analysis. But there's been some sort of conversation around, the Minister of Petroleum should not be, the Office of the Minister of Petroleum Resources should not be headed by the President, because as of now, the President holds the office of the Minister of Petroleum Resources, even though he appointed Heineken Lokobiri as the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources for Oil and Ekperikpe Ekpo as Minister of State for Petroleum Resources for Gas in August 2023. They have been calling for a very independent body to man that role, saying that the President should not interfere in petroleum resources based on the number of things he has on his hands. And Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, has also come out to say the NNPCL does not have the power to actually increase fuel price. So let us understand things properly. Are we saying that this particular increase did not come from the NNPCL but from other forces? And when you answer that, I would like to understand your perspective on this position of Minister of Petroleum Resources being held by the President of the country.
All right, thank you. When you talk about price increase, right, the NNPCL would come out and disclaim to you that first and foremost, it is just increasing the prices that it feels is okay for its own refinery, its own downstream operations. And that doesn't in any way interfere with the prices of those people who can afford to sell it cheaper. And if they can afford, they can go ahead and set those prices. That's the disclaimer you're probably going to get from the NNPCL. But we all know, the truth be told, that the NNPCL is the main indicator, and once they increase, everybody increases for obvious reasons. So I'm just trying to tell you that it is black and white in real life, but it has a bit of grayish area when it comes to the legalities around it. But just to explain the increase is, let's put it this way. With 133 naira per liter still embedded as subsidy, we knew that the increase was going to come, because we did see the publication that even at that price, the NNPCL was still paying 133 naira per liter. Now, let's look at, so we now know the motive, but let's look at the opportunity. The opportunity came when the Middle East crisis involving Israel, Lebanon, and Iran happened. And then the prices of crude went up slightly, and so the NNPCL thought, wow, what a fantastic opportunity to do this, and it'll be easier to tell people that, okay, it is that war that is causing the problem. So we have the intent and the opportunity coming to meet each other. It was time to strike. So there was always that cost burden, but no better time to let it go than to say, well, this slight increase in crude has turned it. But the truth is, if you calculate the differential, with the percentage differential that the increment in crude has caused, plus any differential in the logistics cost, you find out that that doesn't correspond to the price increase in our fuel system. And that tells you that there's another cause which they really wanted to get out very quickly, but this was just an opportunity to get it out. Now, if you're looking at the powers of the minister, and whether or not that should be domiciled, I believe for a more efficient system, this is my thought. Maybe I may be open to debate, but for a more efficient system, there should be division, and of course there should be separation of powers. Of course, there should be. We should have no potential for conflict of interest. No potential. I'm not saying that it exists, but I'm saying there shouldn't be any potential for conflict of interest. But whether that powers is going to be domiciled in an individual or in an institution is something still up for argument. Because some people may say, take it to an individual, just like we used to have back then when, like back in the days where we had Desiani as the minister. But, the question is that what you want to do? Or do you really want to create a parastatal where there are checks and balances and that power is domiciled on the parastatal, and there's a clearly laid out approach for how decisions are reached? I think that's the ultimate aim. And I think ultimately, I like to tell people that the Petroleum Industry Act is still, I like to say, is still developing. It's still a case that we haven't gotten it perfectly right. In fact, no law has been gotten perfectly right. And these are some of the areas for additional improvements in the PIA.
Right. Thank you very much. Just before we let you go very quickly, there's been a little tussle between Asari Dokubo and the military. Now, if we take it, yesterday the Defense Headquarters has dared the former militant leader, Asari Dokubo, to come to the battlefield and see what the military is capable of. Now, this is connected to a statement made by Asari Dokubo on the 5th of October, where he threatened to shoot down a military helicopter which was hovering over his residence, and he added that he has the capacity to contain the Nigerian military. It seems like a form of tussle is going on between the Nigerian military and the former militant. I would like to get your perspective on this situation and how best it can be properly managed.
Right, I think I'll plead for dialogue. We have enough problems already, because at the end of the day, think about it. I always go by the adage that sometimes when you see a masquerade dancing on the road, there's definitely someone beating the drums for the masquerade. And at some point, when you get to, you try to reach out to the masquerade, you find out that the guys in the bush will probably come out and drag the masquerade, but what about the followers of the masquerade? That's what really worries me. What about the people that are going to be around when the whole tussle is going on? So I think let's understand that it's hard enough. Let's put people in our own situation, and put ourselves in other people's situation rather, and know that it is hard enough for people to even survive Nigeria currently. In fact, the people deserve a certificate of survival to even make it this far.
Very true.
And keep and keep a very sane mind, because trust me, I've been in the UK, and for quite, just even for example, when September 11 happened, or even the London metro bombing, when that happened, people watched TVs and ran into depression. A lot of them had to even claim some sort of support from the government for depression. And this is just watching the TV, a lot of them, but talk less of being actively involved in the whole, economic crisis, and then of course any other conflict. It's too much for Nigeria. So the two actors should know that, please, if it goes on, it's going to affect a lot of Nigerians, and they should please give dialogue a chance.
All right. Thank you so much. That's a very safe place to land. Give dialogue a chance. It's been a delight speaking with you, Dr. Wisdom Enang, on the newspaper review this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you both, and do enjoy your day.
I wish you the very same. Thank you. All right.